Books. Oh, hello. I didn't see you come in. I was just enjoying some books. Here's a joke that only alcoholics will understand. A man walks into a bar and orders 10 shots of vodka. The barman lines them all up, and the man takes the first one and throws it on the floor and then quickly drinks the remaining 9. When he's finished, the barman says, "Why did you do that?" And the man says, "Well, my sponsor tells me the first drink is the most dangerous." Brothers, sisters, comrades and friends, welcome to Bad Country. As a recovering alcoholic, I often find myself wishing that I'd got sober sooner. So, why didn't I? I knew I had to. I knew I needed to. I knew the damage I was doing to myself and to people around me. So why didn't I just quit? And that's another way of asking a broader question. Why is it so hard for alcoholics to just quit drinking? So this video is mostly for the benefit of the people around alcoholics, family, friends, loved ones. I want to give some insight into alcoholic thinking while we're drinking thinking, and why it's not as easy as just stopping, even if we ourselves want to, which we often do. And if any of this is of any use to you, if you find any of it useful, please give it a like and a subscribe so that it's more likely to be found by other people who might find it useful. So let's talk about it. Why can't we just stop drinking? Well, the quickest and easiest answer to that is right in the definition of alcohol itself. It is a highly addictive, psychoactive chemical compound. It is very literally a chemical solution. But the two important elements of that definition are the phrase addictive and psychoactive. Addictive means you are compelled to do something even if it's against your better interest. And psychoactive means that you are not aware that you're being compelled to do something. In other words, alcohol gets its hooks in you and then makes you stupid. And you do stupid things and you say stupid stuff and you have stupid thoughts and you make stupid decisions. And you just can't stop being stupid, because being stupid is a direct byproduct of alcohol. And I mean that literally. Let me explain. Stupidity is a side effect of alcohol, and that's partially why it's difficult to stop yourself from making stupid decisions and saying stupid things. Stupidity is comorbid with alcohol. Stupidity and alcohol are homoousian, they're of the same stuff. Extrapolate it out. Let's replace, for the sake of this argument, one psychoactive drug with another. So take out alcohol and replace it with, say, LSD. When someone's on LSD, it is not reasonable, it makes no sense to ask them to stop hallucinating, right? Because the hallucinations are a direct byproduct of the psychoactive chemical that's affecting them, LSD. You can't just snap out of that. That is a product of the chemical. Now, back to alcohol. You can't ask someone to make a good decision when they're drunk, because stupidity is a byproduct of the psychoactive substance. Very proud of myself for ad-libbing the word homoousian there. And then the other part of the definition, addictive. Let's talk about the nature of addiction just for a moment. Chronic alcohol consumption can and usually will lead to a dependence. And with alcohol, there is both a physical and a psychological dependence. It's a very dangerous combination. It's hard to know exactly at what point a person crossed the threshold and became dependent on alcohol. For what it's worth, I think the moment people start to take a hair of the dog the morning after, that's when a problem is looming. That's the pattern where my problem certainly began, and it began many, many years before my life eventually spiraled out of control. In physical dependence, your body, particularly your brain and central nervous system, have made real, measurable, substantial adaptations to be able to continue functioning in the presence of high levels of alcohol. There is a physiological, neurochemical change in your body once you become dependent on alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant. It suppresses brain activity. We tend to think, or at least I did when I was growing up, we think of an alcohol almost as a stimulant, because in the early stages of drunkenness, we experience a relaxing of our inhibitions and a certain kind of energy. And that's what most of us remember from the early stages of alcohol, doing crazy things and having crazy experiences. But in fact, that phase of drunkenness is not a direct effect of the alcohol. It is in fact the early stages of your central nervous system adapting to the depressant effects of the alcohol. Your central nervous system is trying to compensate for the presence of a depressant by hyper-exciting your brain activity to keep you up, to keep you from falling asleep, losing consciousness. And in time, it will lose that fight and you will lose consciousness. And then over time, unless you sober up regularly, your central nervous system will have to do that, will have to maintain that hyper-excitability permanently. It will constantly be trying to compensate for the presence of a depressant, alcohol, until that becomes your baseline state. At which point you have developed a tolerance and you are dependent on alcohol. You are physically addicted. And now, suddenly removing the alcohol, that is to say, stopping, itself becomes dangerous. Remove the depressant from your system and your central nervous system goes into overdrive, your brain becomes hyperexcited, and you enter a state of acute withdrawal syndrome, which is a medical emergency in extreme cases. And that brings me on to the second part of the addictive nature of alcohol, which is the psychological dependence. Now, that withdrawal I just mentioned, it can be so intimidating, so terrifying that many of us don't want to quit because we know we will have to face that. That's what this whole channel is about. If you want to know more about my experiences with severe withdrawal and delirium tremens, have a flick back through my channel for those videos. Needless to say, most of us who go through it will do anything we can to avoid it again, and we try all sorts of crazy things, and one of those things includes not stopping. The fear of withdrawal is absolutely real, but before we get to that, before someone reaches that stage where they even have to consider what it might be like to experience withdrawal, you have to consider why we were drinking in the first place. If you are able to get any sense out of an alcoholic while they are drinking, and you ask them why they are drinking, the truth is many of us don't really know. I don't really know myself why I was specifically drinking the way that I did, but in general, it will fall into some flavor of coping mechanism, right? And the phrase coping mechanism is not a particularly accurate phrase. In my opinion, it would be more accurate to say that alcohol is a mechanism to avoid coping. I had a major depressive disorder, PTSD, a generalized anxiety disorder, and a head injury. And alcohol postponed me just having to deal with that stuff, just kicked it down the road a little further. It just delayed it for as long as I was in the bottle. And most, if not all, alcoholics are suffering from some kind of comorbid, co-occurring mental health disorder. And apart from alcoholism, alcoholism is a mental health disorder of its own, but usually there is a co-occurring disorder of some kind. And for a lot of us, alcohol can seem to alleviate the symptoms of those mental disorders. That makes the thought of quitting scary, because we don't see the alcohol as the problem. We see everything else as the problem. The alcohol is the medicine. And whatever it is, stress or guilt or grief, whatever the reason, we're drinking because we don't want to deal with it. And stopping drinking means that we have to. We have to face whatever it is that we were hiding in the bottle from. And the problem is, if we were so emotionally ill-equipped to face whatever that problem is that we ran into the bottle, then we're still going to be ill-equipped when we sober up. So we don't sober up. In fact, speaking largely for myself here, and I should stress that I am in no position to speak on behalf of all alcoholics. I am speaking largely from my own personal experience and then kind of extrapolating outwards. But people like me, at least, tend to think that alcohol is the easy way out. And that's because we are generally selfish cowards. And we don't know how to handle our troubles, and we have no interest in learning how. And for me, the psychological cravings, the psychological part of the addiction lasted a much longer time than the physical part of the addiction. Having been sober a while now, I don't have physical urges to drink anymore. In fact, the thought of drinking alcohol, the thought of having alcohol in my mouth, it makes me feel sick. It's horrible. But I get psychological urges all the time. I'll give you an example, just an insight into how weird and confusing the psychological part of the addiction is, even years after you've quit drinking. I went to an AA meeting a few nights ago, and it was the first one I'd been to in a while. I was fine. I wasn't struggling or anything, but I was in a new area, and I thought I would go and check it out and to see what the vibe is like, just to see what a meeting here is like. It's kind of normal practice, really. And like I said, I've been sober a while, and I'm not complacent about that, but at the moment I am confident in my sobriety. But it's kind of normal. You check it, you drop in and you drop out from AA from time to time, or it doesn't signify anything greater than that. Being in AA doesn't mean you're on the verge of a relapse or anything. And the meeting itself was a really good one. There was a lot of laughter and anecdotes and banter, as they say here in the UK. It had a very positive atmosphere about it. And I walked away feeling good. And as I left, there was a grocery store just closing up for the night. It was 11 p.m, so they were just closing their doors. And then an urge struck to run in to that closing grocery store just before it closed and buy a bottle of vodka. And the thought in my head was not that that AA meeting had made me more dedicated and more committed to my sobriety. The thought was that group was so welcoming and pleasant that if I had a relapse here, they would look after me. So why not just, this is a safe place to relapse. So go on, the shop's nearly closed. Just go grab a bottle of vodka. You've done so good in your sobriety. You've been sober so long. Why not just this once? And that is alcoholic logic. Your own psychology is constantly trying to give you reasons to drink, trying to trick you into drinking, your own mind. And you can imagine, it takes a little bit of resilience, even in sobriety, to resist such a bizarre urge. But if you're already drunk, you have no resistance to that kind of urge. Because you're drunk, you're suggestible. You are not aware that you're being tricked. You're not aware that you have fallen into a trap. Because an alcoholic's mind is always working against them. Alcoholism wants you to fail so that it can make you feel bad for being a failure, so that you drink more. I'm not on a crusade to get alcohol banned, by the way. Most people, after all, do not have an alcohol problem. But I can't help thinking the world would be a better place without it. Okay, but those are everything I've said so far is relatively hard to relate to. The addiction science and the psychoactiveness, it doesn't give you a sense of what it really feels like to be an alcoholic. So let's try that. Here's a more honest answer to the question, why can't we stop drinking? And it's this. This is an ugly truth. We're selfish. We are selfish and we don't care about you. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how you try to persuade us. We don't care. We love you. We love you. We just don't care about you. We just don't care. Nothing matters. Alcoholism is utterly nihilistic. It's nothing personal. We do love you. It's just that the self-loathing we have for ourselves outweighs the love we have for you. Because remember, selfishness does not mean that we love ourselves. It simply means that we are the center of our own universes to the complete exclusion of everybody else. Our only interest is us. We don't hate you, even if we say we do when we're drinking. The truth of that, in this state, is that we can't see far enough past our own pity for ourselves to feel anything about anyone else, love or hate. We don't care. And we lie too. The truth does not come out when we drink. We lie. And we say stupid things like, I haven't been drinking today, or I don't think I have a problem. And those lies, those particular examples, speak to a larger part of why it's hard for us to quit. And that's because it's difficult, even in sobriety, to admit that we need help. It takes some courage to admit that we have a problem. And as I've established earlier, we are cowards. I certainly was for a very, very long time. And that manifested in lies and addiction and a refusal to address my own problem. And lies like that erode your trust in us, and then we will blame you for not trusting us. We'll be angry at you that our constant breaches of your trust has led to you being reluctant to trust us. Again, that is alcoholic logic. And it's manipulative. The whole, I can't believe you don't trust me bullshit. That's designed to make you feel guilty for having an emotional response to what we're putting you through, so that you will tolerate or even enable our behavior, our addiction. So I hope I've made a case for how difficult it is to quit, because the lies that we're telling you, we're also subject to them. We also can't escape them. And I think I'll finish up like this. Alcohol makes us stupid, but alcoholism itself is incredibly intelligent. I can't tell you, I can't express well enough just how persuasive alcoholism is, even long into sobriety. But I suspect if you're watching this video, you've probably seen it yourself firsthand. I was reading the other day about a new strain of some STI, a viral STI, and one of its mechanisms is that it makes its human host horny. It provokes promiscuity, for lack of a better word, in order to spread itself. Isn't that terrifying? A cunning quirk of evolutionary biology, that a virus can put its host at risk in order to perpetuate itself. That is alcoholism. Have you heard of Ophiocordyceps? It's a fungal spore that infects insects like beetles, and it grows inside them and eventually controls them in such a way that the insect will move to locations more favorable for the survival of the fungus, even though the insect itself is already dead, like a zombie. That is alcoholism. It gets in us, gets its hooks in, and wants to propagate itself as quickly as possible, and we have no control over it, and we have no knowledge that we have no control over it. We don't even know. To answer the question, why can't we just quit alcohol? It's because it's like a perfect storm. It's addictive, so it's hard to quit from the start. It's psychoactive, so we don't know that we're addicted to it. It tends to afflict people who are selfish to begin with, which makes it very difficult for us to ask for help. And while we're using it, unfortunately, it feels like very effective medicine. That's it for now. Like, subscribe, and share your experiences in the comments. And as always, good luck out there.